How Comic Hour with your host, Andrew Glonner.
And Chris Ramos.
Today, we're going to talk about the world of the what if. With what if Peter Parker became the Punisher?
What if?
Yes.
When was this written?
This was written in December of 2018.
That's not bad.
No.
We're not that old right now.
Yep, we're not. At least I'm not.
So though I picked up on that. So the what ifs are the Marvels just having fun, and they pass off their stories to some writers and artists, and they say, you can write a what if, keep it in whatever time frame or world or run you want, and just have fun with it. So
Yep.
I always thought that was
No
pretty
consequences,
awesome.
no handlebars. Go for it.
Yeah. So this one actually started off pretty awesome because the way that so the first thing I thought was funny, and I didn't really notice it until I was reading it, but when I read a what if, it's like you're playing detective because you're like, that's the same. That's the same.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's the change. You know, and like you want to be like, I know how this went to begin with, and I've noticed the change. You feel like I found it. You know?
Yeah. This story is also written by Carl Potts. Artist was Juan Ramirez and Rochelle Rosenberg. And then, so I got to meet both the writer and the colorist, and they both really had a amazing time writing this. Carl Potts said, "Oh, this was a really fun story to write." Rochelle Rosenberg, I definitely complimented her about her use of coloring and lighting and this series, because I think it definitely adds to the tones and brings out the emotion that this comic had.
Is that why they're both signed on your cover there?
Yes.
Single issues are fun because, you still want to have a little single issue collection, even though the podcast, we always talk about hardcover collected editions. It is fun to just go, either old school or just go into, that intimate one single issue, one single story, start to finish, and that's what a what if is.
Yep.
Starts and ends in one issue.
That's right. So Peter Parker starts off kind of similar how we started off in our Spider-Man omnibus, where he's fighting for money. And, he's still kind of has that different, not the great power comes with great responsibility aspect. Mm-hmm. He thinks that's kind of like second or later.
Yeah, he gets his powers the same. He's kind of like, all right, I got powers now. Let's do this. But he makes his own costume, and that's sort of the first, like, wait a minute. So he makes his own costume, and it's black.
Yep. Like, he's going to track down the guy who killed Uncle Ben, and he makes his costume. He kicks the crap out of him, but his first costume that he makes is the black Spider-Man costume, and then he adds a skull in front of it instead of the spider.
Yeah, the Punisher skull on the front.
Yeah.
Because he right away just feels like, I am going to be this vengeful, skull thing,
You're right.
So it is it goes along with the story pretty well, actually. And it's a pretty good story just right off the bat. It starts right away.
Yep. Has really good pacing about it. It doesn't drag or slow down. It keeps really good pacing about it. That's what I really like about it. And the excitement and the action of it is really cool. Still kind of follows the same tropes, like the Daily Bugle publishes the punishing spider terrorizes the city.
Yeah, like no matter. So it's like, he can just never get away from that.
Right. Still the menacing spider, but it definitely grounds it really hard. And he's still a photographer. He still starts out like that.
Yeah.
And but he's still in for the money, trying to get the best out of it he can. And he finally starts getting super villains.
Yeah, he gets like his own Sinister Six. And the fun thing about doing a what if on Spider-Man is there's still basic rules that I think you always have to define Spider-Man. And number one is Uncle Ben's got to go.
Yep.
Sorry, everyone. Uncle Ben dies in every story.
Yep.
And the other fun thing about it is Spider-Man's known for his rogues gallery, so you just cannot leave them out of the comic.
Right.
The funny thing in this one is that he dispatches with them pretty fast. He just says, you know what? I don't need to do this non-lethal force stuff. And
Yeah, he's like that won't solve the problem, and so I believe he puts like a little like mini instead of his web shooters, he still has that, but he also like puts like a little pistol or something on it,
yeah,
and he's
they
like pew, pew,
become
pew.
pistols.
Yeah,
And
pew,
he has a
pew.
utility belt, which is
Yep.
really funny.
Right.
You're like,
Yeah.
what's in there?
Yeah. It's like a mix between the traditional Punisher and Batman, I think, with his utility value.
Maybe he has more bullets in there.
Right. Yeah.
This is-
Wee little ones. And they're not rubber bullets. They're the true thing. And it's like he dispatches them right away so they don't have this longevity. The only one he can't take care of is the Green Goblin.
Yeah, which actually, so he takes all his villains out, and then he says, "I did it." You know, there's
Yep.
like a part in the comic where he's like, "I did it.
Did it?
I'm
Yep.
done. The city is saved," and he stops being the Punisher Spider-Man. He goes to school, he gets his degree and all that stuff. You
Yep.
know, he's like, "I'm gonna start a life," and with Gwen Stacy. And
Yeah, he goes to Gwen Stacy before Mary Jane, which is always cool to see that played up.
don't
'cause-
forget that Gwen Stacy was number one.
Oh, I did forget that. So yeah, look at me go. But yeah, and so that was super cool to see that more develop and like the torment and everything that Spider-Man brings about him, and just this harshness. He's still like a little quippy, but it's very seldom.
So, for me, one of the things that I noticed too, the Green Goblin knows his identity, right?
Yes.
So it's always kind of like an important factor for me is that if you're a villain of a superhero and you know their identity, either you become like their biggest villain, their biggest fan, like that they just feel like they have this shared quality with the superhero, and so they always sort of feel like they're on top. So the Green Goblin always felt like I'm above everyone else because I know his real identity. And
Yeah.
most of his rogues gallery doesn't.
Yeah, that's
you know?
true. Yeah, very. And they might have retconned it sometimes if they did find out.
Yeah.
I don't know, just to make the story go. But
But he's like, I know you,
Yep.
Parker. And he keeps calling him Parker. And then
Ah.
Gwen Stacy's like, wait a minute.
and then she puts
Wait a
two and two.
minute.
Yeah, right. But it was very dramatic, and I think when they reenacted the death of Gwen Stacy, I think this is why they wrote it,
Yeah, that's
or where they got the idea or spinoff from was like, hey, what can we do to that story?
right. And so, again, I think that goes back to, Gwen Stacy always has to be sort of that in distress. She's always the love story that never happened.
Yeah,
And
the one that got away, but yeah, literally.
the one that fell away.
Yep.
And so, but I think the story still holds true. I mean, they set him up very early to say this is the punishing Spider-Man, and he still is like all lethal force, and it catches up to him a little bit, but we don't want to ruin the ultimate ending. But
Right.
I think that you can see that Peter Parker has either wants to be a vengeful Spider-Man, or maybe he wants to lead a normal life.
Yep.
And that's sort of where this comic heads towards the end, and you don't know which way this is going to go.
Right. But I like the part that they did include, which was they still introduced the character Frank Castle.
Yeah. So at the end, there's a news blurb that says Hector Montoya is still in the Costa family crime war.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute. That's the crime war that Frank Castle, the real Punisher, got caught in, and his whole family
So
got shot.
that still happens. Like the Punisher's origin still happens.
But it's almost like an like he wasn't the original Punisher. Is that what they're trying to say?
I think so. That's a cool concept to also equip with that is like he was distressed. He was looking for a solution and something, and then he ended up finding the Punisher costume.
What was his inspiration? He was inspired by the Punisher, who was Spider-Man.
So I definitely, this is one of my favorite what ifs, and I'm glad we got to cover it. It's super cool, and I really like the art in it. It's really catching to the eye, and
It's an easy read, and it keeps the story going. It keeps there's no dull moments, and as far as like a single issue, it's fun, really fun.
Yep. So, thanks for tuning in for the special What If Peter Parker Became the Punisher episode. Stay tuned for more What If Adventures.
See you around.